Welcome to Bible Fiber, where we explore the textures and shades of the biblical tapestry. I'm Shelley Neese, president of the Jerusalem Connection, a Christian organization dedicated to sharing the stories of Israel's people, both ancient and modern. I'm also the author of the book, Bible Fiber, the 12 Minor Prophets, available on Amazon. This week's Torah portion covers Deuteronomy 3:23 to 7:11. It is called Vayet Hanan, which translates to I pleaded, because it begins with Moses pleading with God for permission to cross the Jordan River. Deuteronomy 3:22 through 25 records Moses saying, "At that time I pleaded with the Lord, saying, 'Sovereign Lord, you have begun to show to your servant your greatness and your strong hand. For what God is there in heaven or on earth who can do the deeds and mighty works you do? Let me go over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, that fine hill country in Lebanon.'" Though Moses is forbidden to cross the Jordan, he is permitted to gaze upon the valley from atop Pisgah. Biblical scholars often point out that Deuteronomy stands apart linguistically and stylistically from Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers. While the first 4 books of the Torah lean heavily into legal codes, historical chronicles, and narrative storytelling, Deuteronomy adopts the distinctive voice of wisdom literature. God's commandments are not listed as arbitrary rules to obey under threat of punishment, but as the ultimate pathway to a flourishing spiritual life. Wisdom literature is concerned with internal disposition, moral character, and how a person processes experience. Deuteronomy repeatedly emphasizes the inner life, instructing the people to write the laws on their hearts, to watch themselves closely, and to consciously guard their memories against forgetfulness. Obedience is framed as an act of intellectual and spiritual alignment with the will of God. Deuteronomy 4:40 exhorts the Israelites, "Keep his statutes and his commandments which I am commanding you today for your own well-being and that of your descendants after you, so that you may long remain in the land that the Lord your God is giving you for all time." Moses understands the threat facing God's people as they leave the protection and relative isolation of the desert. For 40 years, they were totally dependent on God's provisions. Military battles await, but so also does a settled life with more comforts and distractions than previously available in their encampments. The further they get from the miracles they witnessed in the desert, and the more distance they gain from each other, the bigger the chance that it will all fade away from their hearts. Moses warns the people to neither add nor to take away from the commandments. Obedience to their covenant will be a source of inspiration for the surrounding nations. Moses says, "You must observe them and perform them, for this will show your wisdom and discernment to the peoples, who, when they hear all these statutes, will say, 'Surely this great nation is a wise and discerning people.'" Traditional commentators point out that the covenant does not call Israel to force its statutes upon neighboring empires. Instead, the nation is meant to serve as an example. The surrounding peoples will watch the Israelites and draw their own conclusions about the character of God and the wisdom of his laws, simply by observing the stability, justice, and spiritual vitality of the Israelite community. The nations will also be aroused to jealousy in seeing the caring concern of Yahweh for the covenant people. Moses asked, "For what other great nation has a God so near to it as the Lord our God is whenever we call to him?" In the ancient world, deities were distant, capricious forces tied exclusively to temples and royal courts. They were accessible only to high elites. The Bible introduces the one true God who is accessible to every single person whenever they call upon him. God instructs Moses to commission Joshua to lead the people across the Jordan, to inherit the land. Rather than sinking into bitterness or abandoning his post, Moses secures the future of the nation under their new leader. Moses possesses the hallmark of a true shepherd. He accepts that his own role must end so the mission can continue. The text pointedly bypasses Moses' sons, Gershom and Eliezer, whose descendants fade into the background of biblical history. Instead, authority is granted based on character and spiritual qualifications. Joshua earns the mantle because he spent decades as Moses' faithful attendant, remaining entirely devoted to God's vision, even when the rest of the community faltered. As Moses' attendant from his youth, Joshua protected his mentor's position and defended his authority. We see his fierce loyalty on display in Numbers 11, when Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. Joshua immediately jumped to his mentor's defense, urging Moses to stop them out of protective jealousy for his leadership. As recorded in Numbers 13 and 14, Joshua served as one of the 12 spies into Canaan. While 10 spies returned with a terrifying report that crippled the morale of the entire nation, Joshua and Caleb stood alone against the panicked crowd. They tore their clothes and fiercely defended God's promise, pleading with the rebellious Israelites not to rebel against the Lord or fear the inhabitants of the land. This week's Torah portion also includes the most important proclamation in all of Judaism. As Moses contemplates the preservation of the Israelite faith and how best parents can impress the teachings upon their children, he says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might." This verse is known in Hebrew as the Shema. It's considered the most critical piece of liturgy in all of Judaism. It's the great declaration of God's oneness and his kingship. Jewish morning prayers and evening prayers include the Shema. The Shema is also part of Shabbat prayers. On Yom Kippur, the holiest day on the Jewish calendar, the service climaxes with the communal recitation of the Shema. According to tradition, if a Jewish person believes their death is imminent, they should recite the Shema so that it can be the last words on their lips. I've read stories of soldiers in the Israel Defense Forces in wartime reciting the Shema together in their tanks and from their outlooks. When the Shema is recited, worshipers cover their eyes with their right hand to encourage absolute concentration and focus on the divine unity. After World War II was over and the reality of the number 6 million began to take hold, Jewish rescue groups and rabbinic leaders faced the monumental task of finding hidden Jewish children. Rabbis and rescue workers tried to locate Jewish orphans who had been sheltered across Europe. In many cases, these children had suppressed their identity for years to evade capture, and they were terrified to reveal their origins to outsiders. Rescuers would visit children at bedtime and softly recite the opening lines of the Shema. By instinct, hearing those familiar Hebrew words whispered at dusk, the Jewish children often responded by covering their eyes. The most critical key to the long story of Jewish survival is memory, passing along the stories, teachings, and prayers to the young and keeping their memories alive, even if they were not there as eyewitnesses to the miracles. Moses pleads in Deuteronomy 4:9, "But take care and watch yourselves closely so as neither to forget the things that your eyes have seen, nor let them slip from your mind all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and to your children's children." The Jewish orphans shielding their eyes when they heard the Shema shows the power of Moses' exhortation and the centuries it has been taken to heart. That's it for this week. If you would like to get the study questions that go with the reading, please visit our website at thejerusalemconnection.us. Shabbat Shalom and Am Israel Chai.